Module 4, problem number 8. In a clinical trial, 19 out of 824 patients taking a prescription drug daily complained of flu-like symptoms. Suppose that it is known that 1.9% of patients taking competing drugs complain of flu-like symptoms. Is there sufficient evidence to conclude that more than 1.9% of the drug's users experience flu-like symptoms as a side effect at the alpha equals 0.05 level of significance? So this is the first part of this is one of the fill in the blanks with the drop down. So let's read through. We have because n p naught times 1 minus p naught equals blank. And then we're going to relate that to the number 10. Remember, this is one of the requirements for hypothesis testing. So our p naught, that is the number that we're comparing to. So that's given in the problem as 1.9% or 0.019. So let's go over here to our calculation. We have 824, n equals 824, p naught equals 0.019. When we plug that into the formula here, we get 824 times 0.019 times 0.981, and that gives us 15.35. Over here it says to round to 1 decimal place. So we have 15.4. and that is greater than 10. That's one of the requirements. Now, it doesn't talk about the population size, but it does say that it's a clinical trial. And when it's a clinical trial, you can assume that they met those requirements. So in this case, we're going to assume that the sample size is less than 5% of the population size. Again, that's one of the requirements for hypothesis testing. And the sample, we have a couple of options here. This is talking about whether or not it's random. Again, the problem does not state that this is a random sample. However, the fact that it's a clinical trial would tell us that the people that were involved with the planning of the trial would have done a random sample. So it can be reasonably assumed to be random. And the requirements for testing the hypothesis, if all those are true, they are satisfied. Let's check our answer. Fantastic. If anyone has any questions about those requirements, let me know. They're in those little box from the text that says show next step, or if you go to my lesson, it's in those purple boxes that's got the different steps. It'll have the listed requirements at the top of those. What are the null and alternative hypotheses? Remember, the null hypothesis is always that whatever statistic we're looking at is equal to our test statistic. In this case, it's p naught. So we are looking at the proportion, not the mean, and it's equal, and our p naught up there is 0.019. So the alternative, let's go back to the problem to see what our alternative here. It says, is there sufficient evidence to conclude that more than 1.9? That's our tip right there. So we know then that we're looking at more than. So we have the proportion is greater than 0.019. Check answer. Nice work. All right, find the test statistic. I'm going to do this in StatCrunch because it's super easy, and I think for anyone having a hard time, I want to show you the easiest way to do it. So we're going to go to Stat. Again, we're looking at proportion stats. One sample, and in this case, we have the summary. We do not have the data set. We just have the summary. So the number of successes is 19, as you see right here from the problem. The number of observations is 824, again, right from the problem right here. And we're doing a hypothesis test, which is already checked for us. Our p naught is 0.019, and our alternative is that it's greater than 0.019. Click compute. That gives us both our test statistic and our p-value. So let's go ahead. It says to round to 2 decimal places. That gives us 0.85. All right, find the p-value. Luckily, we already have it. That's going to give us, when we round up, we end up with 0.20. Check answer. Well done. All right, choose the correct conclusion below. Remember, our alpha up here is 0.05. So we know that our p-value is greater than alpha. So that already knocks out options C and D. Remember, if our p-value is less than alpha, we reject the null hypothesis. Otherwise, we do not reject. So in this case, our p-value is greater than alpha. That means we do not reject the null hypothesis. So, since p-value is greater than alpha, do not reject the null hypothesis and conclude that there is not sufficient evidence that more than 1.9% of the users experience flu-like symptoms. Again, we're not accepting the null hypothesis. We're only saying that there's not sufficient evidence to support the alternative. And you can see that in the way that they worded that answer. Let's check answer. All right, that's number 8 for module number 4. Let me know if you have any questions.